Lies, shenanigans, truth, 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 lies, shenanigans.
Oh yeah!
Shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans, 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 truth, lies, shenanigans.
Oh yeah! Shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans, 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 truth, lies, shenanigans.
Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans. Truth, lies, shenanigans.
Hey friends, this is Truth Lies Shenanigans, the live show, Wednesday, September 30th, 2020, last day of September. My name is Neo, and I'd like to welcome you all to our fun, but sometimes impassioned show. Let me introduce you to our host tonight. We have in the opposite corner everyone's favorite professor, Miss Liz E.
Happy Hump Day, everyone. Hopefully, you guys have gotten over the debate hangover, that you have come back to some semblance of normalcy today on this Hump Day. So, thank you
Definitely.
for joining us.
Yeah, and then below me, everyone's favorite rock star, Rob B. Rob B, you're muted.
You're muted, Robbie. You're muted.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Technical issue out of the way.
And East is taking a little break from the show tonight, but we'll see him back next week. For today's
What's up,
show,
East?
hey East, today's show we have a special guest spotlight with artist Mark Gagne, and we'll be asking all about his amazing creepy creation. And for hot topics, we'll be talking about that fiery debate last night with Biden and Trump. Lizzie will be questioning the injustices with Breonna Taylor investigation, and Rob B will be asking why the scary teacher got fired. Remember, we are live everywhere: YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, and Twitter at TLS Live Show. You can also watch us at truthliveshenanigans.com. Let's get some of your friends involved in the conversation as well. Take a minute to mention them in the comments so they can join us. And today should be a really, really hot show, so they should really enjoy it. Of course, you know we love it when you join the conversation. We'll be checking the comments and questions of all of our live feeds and responding to you live on air. Okay, hosts, we've only got 33 days left until the election. You know, we'll be talking about that crazy debate later in Hot Topics, but let's talk about why it's so important to vote, why it's so important to get out. Now, I know, Rob, you actually can't vote, but
Blame Canada. Blame
Not in this
Canada.
one.
but what can you tell our viewers about why it's so important to you for people to vote?
It's very important for me, for the rest of the world, for all Americans to get out and to let their voices be heard, that the outcome will reflect what Americans want. At the end of the day, I think that there's going to be some serious. It's not going to be an easy 4 years, no matter what happens. But it's your civic duty. It's so important. There's really so little of you that's asked as a citizen. This is a simple duty that you can accomplish, and it can absolutely tip the scales for all of us. Unfortunately, what happens over the next 4 years will have an impact on the planet.
Yeah, good point. Lizzie?
I agree with Rob B. It's our civic duty. It's also a part of the democratic process. Like a lot of countries, there are still countries in this world where the citizens can't freely vote in elections. And so that's one of the things that we as Americans, especially once every American citizen was, granted the right to vote, we take pride in. Voting gets you results. And I'm not just talking about for the general election, I'm talking about for your state elections, for your local elections. Voting gets you the results in your communities, in your states, in your neighborhoods. And I always look at the people who don't go out to vote. More often than not, they are the biggest complainers. They're the ones that are griping and huffing and puffing about all the problems in their communities, and yet they don't go out and make their voices heard, make their demands heard, and invoke change by voting.
Yep.
So if you want things to change, party people, you got to vote.
That's right.
You got to vote.
That's right. Now, my thoughts are, we we need to do more than just get out to vote. We need to make sure that others are going out to vote. I mean, we have these Facebook pages, social media, we have worldwide reach that we don't even recognize. We should be making sure that others are getting out there, getting out to vote. So if you have somebody out in Kentucky, somewhere in Kentucky, try to not only get them to vote, get them to get their friends voting. So start influencing people, not just voting, but influencing people. But yeah, make sure we're getting out to vote, because this election, when they say on the news all the time, this is the most important election. It's the most important election because we've got to get rid of Trump. That's why it's the most important election of our lives, because he is a horrible president and he's got to go. But we need to make sure we're getting our forces out there and we are getting rid of this guy. All right. So let me tell you guys, gave you a little taste, but let me tell you what Truth, Lies, and Shenanigans is all about. We'll be sharing our truths and opinions with you, calling out the lies, and pointing out those crazy shenanigans we see going on. But most importantly, on this show, we do try to have a lot of fun with shenanigans of our own, even though it gets a little heated sometimes. But we do have one rule, and one rule only for our hosts, not our guests, but our hosts. No cussing. If you're caught cussing, there's a $10 penalty. And if you guys are caught cussing 3 times in the same show, you will be sending a love letter.
You wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters.
To the clown himself.
Fell in love.
My finger just wants to inch up there.
Yeah, this.
I'm sorry, that Bama needs to be cussed out. He needs to be cussed out.
He does.
I was hoping that Joe would cuss him out last night.
He came close. He came close.
Told him to shut up.
He came close.
Shut up, man.
All right. So our viewers will call you out if they catch you cussing, by the way. So keep that in mind.
They do. They do call us out. They do.
That's why Lizzie has $100 shows anyway. So
I have 100 on the board because I have cheaters that are running this whole show over here.
All right. So we have a very special guest tonight for our Truth, Lies, Shenanigans Spotlight. Tonight we have Mark Gagne of Mindmelt Studios. Welcome, Mark. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Mark is a mixed media illustrator from Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, that specializes in the cute and creepy, strange and macabre. His creatures symbolize his mental health struggles and his hope that others struggling can find some comfort or recognition in his creation, so that they know that they're not suffering alone. It's an amazing mission, Mark. Thank you again for joining us.
Welcome.
No, happy to be here.
Welcome, Mark.
All right, Mark, tell us a little bit more in detail. Tell us about yourself and tell us what you do.
Well, like you said, I'd like to draw, strange creatures and monsters, and a lot of times they're kind of a reflection of my mental health at the time when I'm creating them. Just kind of bringing the darkness that's in my head out onto paper. and hopefully people can find some connection with the pieces. And I've always been a creative person, and just sort of finding my voice now with these pieces where it's, darker subjects and stuff kind of appeals to me. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about, you said mental health struggles. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for I think most of my life, I've struggled with depression and anxiety, as a lot of people do in the world. And for a long time, it was a hard struggle. Trying to find a balance in my life to be able to function, and at least find some happy times in the dark times.
Mm.
And I think in the last few years, I've been able to get more of a balance of that.
Okay. And Robbie, you had a question.
It's wonderful to have you on the show, Mark, and it's great. You've been a wonderful audience member, a wonderful participant, and to see you here just receiving the questions, it's going to be fun. But what have been the major influences along your journey as far as developing your medium to what it's become now, just the works that you're doing, and what are your main forms of your main mediums?
My main mediums right now is ink on photographs. Before I got back into, I went to college for 3 years for fine arts back in the early 2000s. And then after I graduated, I was doing mostly photography. That was a medium that really called to me. And then around 6-7 years ago, I got more into illustration again. And now my medium has kind of been a melding of the two, taking my photography of abandoned buildings and lonely locations and kind of mixing them with, strange little ink creatures and stuff. And it seemed to be a perfect sort of marriage of these two mediums.
I get a Guillermo del Toro vibe.
Yeah, I see that, and I've gotten that, and I've gotten Tim Burton.
Tim Burton, that's a good one. Yep.
Yeah, and people see the tree spirits from movies like Princess Mononoke and stuff like that. So there's a kind of different areas that I guess I've probably pulled from in popular culture, and try to do it in my own way, sort of have my own voice.
Lizzie?
So we talked about that last image in the pre-show, and I mentioned that it reminded me of the Night Walkers in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So do you look at, where do you find inspiration? Are you just going with things that you feel for the day? Or are you looking at other mediums and saying, oh my goodness, I need to give my touch to that?
Well, a lot of the creatures, like you saw in that piece, I've always been kind of drawn towards and had sort of an interest in the paranormal, and cryptids and strange sort of otherworldly creatures. And I've always been kind of fascinated with the dark forests of the world. So I kind of was doing my take on the idea of the shadow people and shadow creatures, and how they've kind of come through the veil of their own existence and into our existence, and are kind of roaming the world looking at sort of the mess we've made and kind of being unhappy about it.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
And so I kind of feel no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and I mean, as well, sort of, popular culture like Game of Thrones and movies, and then I love horror movies as well, and just sort of pulling those influences in when I'm creating these pieces.
So in the images,
Go ahead, Nina.
I was going to say, in the images I've seen, this was one of my favorites. You have it almost looks like ghosts rising to the sky. It's amazing image. Now, I know
this reminded me of War of the Worlds, of the recent
I could see that.
War of the Worlds 2000s with Tom Cruise.
I could see
And
that.
whereas
Yeah.
you can look at the images, they're either descending or ascending.
Mm.
Right.
But initially I thought, oh my God, where's Tom Cruise? Where's Dakota Fanning in that particular photo?
Now I know art
Yeah.
has been used specifically like for therapy. As a matter of fact, I have a friend who taught art therapy to children for a very long time. So you can talk
Right.
about how your art specifically helps you cope or deal with your mental health struggles.
Well, I've discovered that I tend to create more if I can create through anxiety,
Mm.
but I can't create through depression. When I'm very depressed, I tend to shut down and kind of just sort of go into my shell, sort of thing. Whereas if I have anxiety, it almost makes me sort of like in a manic state, um, and I tend to be a little more energetic,
Mm.
but in an agitated
Makes
way.
sense. Yeah.
So in terms of creating through those things, um, I can definitely cope a little bit more with the anxiety end of it. And I think creating when I have anxiety, what probably makes me focus a little more, kind of gives me like a target or a point that I can focus on. Um, yes, and it sort of helps me kind of work through that area.
So
I think with anxiety, there's a lot of adrenaline in anxiety. And I
Yeah,
have been throughout the course of my life, I have been in bad spots. I have had suffered through some mental episodes. And so you're absolutely right. Like when I'm depressed, I can still write because I'm a writer. I can still
yeah,
write, but it's a lot of melancholy, depressing poetry. Versus
yeah,
when I'm anxious, I have all of this energy. And so I'm talking, I'm writing, I'm watching movies, I'm cooking, I'm doing all of these things. So it's very weird how it manifests into our
right,
creativity, how we feel. And so in looking at a lot of your work today, one, I loved a lot of the images because they made me laugh or they made me think, huh, I want to put that up. That's how I feel when I want to scream. But I
yeah,
also felt like, I love the macabre. I love horror movies and thrillers. Last night after the debate, like when people were winding down, I texted my friend and said, I need to watch Investigative ID. I need to watch a killer show right now because I need to channel some of this negative energy and have it come
a
back to
killer show.
me versus me putting it out there. Yeah, I sit up all night and
What's
watch
fun?
all the
I
killer
bet you do. I could see that.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think the darkness that's in our world right now has kind of led to this sort of explosion of interest of everybody in serial killers and
Mm.
murder shows and stuff like that. And the podcast, I forget what it's called there, but the Murderinos and all those things. I think that's what has led to the resurgence because people are sort of finding some comfort in examining the darkness in the world strangely.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
and I mean I have created some artwork when I've been depressed, but you could definitely see that it's a lot more of an angry um, end result that comes out in my work, whereas like especially right now, like with my current series, the inked photography, that there is a darkness and a macabre edge to it, but there's also a playfulness to it, and it just has a different sort of atmosphere to it, I think.
There's some questions online. Let me get to
Okay.
so one of the questions is from Mike Winter. Are you getting more inspiration from COVID, or are you inspiring more people during COVID?
Mm,
uh
good question.
probably probably both. I kind of joke that the isolation that we've had to engage in, I've kind of been training for it all my life. because I haven't always been the most outgoing person. I don't really go out much. So the isolation has kind of given me the opportunity to explore things artistically. And I mean, just like many other people, I've had a lot of anxiety, dealing with the pandemic, which again, with anxiety, I tend to get more creative again. And I have actually done a couple pieces that have to do with COVID itself. I did this COVID sort of monster. And I also, one of the pieces that you had on display, I had titled it Socially Distant, the one with a little sort of sad creature with all the darkness kind of closing in, is, that one there. That one was kind of how I was feeling, very socially distant and sort of,
Wow.
the darkness of the world sort of encroaching.
Amazing. So Camille Summers says sometimes the scariest things are the unknown amorph- amorphous amorphous.
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 Thank you. I usually can speak English, but not today. Shadows that haunt us feels very familiar to what we're dealing with this year, and with the unknown of our country and we as people. So Mel Blaine, my wife, said, "Can you make Neo into a dark creature?"
What
Sure.
make him into a dark creature?
I'm
He's
not
already
exactly.
a dark. He's already
Sure.
a
I
dark.
can make anybody into a dark creature.
Well,
Robbie.
what would you? So you said you watched the debates last night, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
So, what inspiration, like what creature, hypothetically, of course, but if you want to create, I'd buy it. What creature would you make based off of the debates last night?
Oh boy. Trying to
A
think.
lot of darkness, a lot of darkness there.
Yeah, a lot of darkness, like, especially with Trump, I kind of picture this sort of petulant little child, like kind of like Damien from The Omen in the
I could
70s.
see that.
I picture him as Damien from The Omen, kind of like,
It's very
pitching a
demonic.
fit.
Yep.
Yeah, and Biden is just kind of like trying to hold it together, or like, I forget the name of that movie, but there was a movie where Martin Short played this terrible little child, and Charles Grodin played his dad or something, and I kind of picture Charles Grodin as like Joe Biden, and Martin Short's little petulant child is Trump, and trying to control him, and something like that, but probably play up the sort of surreal creature idea with Trump.
So Camille
Let me
Summers
know
says
if you
something
ever
that
get
looked
that.
like. She said
No,
something that looked
let
like
me know if you get that inspiration. What
Camille
was Sam?
Summers. Camille Summers says something that looked like Orange the Hut with verbal diarrhea.
Yeah, or Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs.
All right, Robbie. Another question. You had another question for?
So, Mark, I want you to, I guess, when you are deciding on a series, when you are deciding what you want to do next, is it something that's very deliberately selected, or is it more based on where you're at that point in time?
Good question. Sometimes it's a mixture of both. Like this current series of my inked photography was something that I had thought about a little while back, and it kind of just got pushed to the side. Um, and I just continued with my regular sort of illustrations, and then it kind of came up again, of mixing the two mediums together, and it just seemed to really just click into place right now. And like you said, maybe it's the climate of what we're going through with the pandemic, um, and especially with all the climate change and everything. Um, I think there's a lot of outside forces that maybe played into the idea of exploring this new series. Um, yeah, I think it's probably a mixture of both. I think it's a mixture of you know deliberately going towards a sort of project and also what I'm feeling at the time. And I mean, sometimes I just kind of fall into it. Like I started this series I don't know, a year and a half ago because I had this art show opening, and I was just going to do these sort of one-off little ink monsters and creatures and ghosts and stuff. So I just did these little ink drawings, like almost like ink blot drawings.
Yep.
And they kind of just took on a life of their own after that, where they just became this big series, and they almost sort of became what I was known for a while. And I'm still sort of feeding off of that. I'm still doing these sort of ink creatures, and it's funny how you sort of explore something and then it becomes something bigger.
So you deal with a lot of so you say you deal with a lot of depression, and that art is not does not help you out of it. So I'm curious. This is a curiosity of mine. So how do you pull yourself out of that depression?
Um, I mean, sometimes it's really hard. I I do give my girlfriend, my partner, a lot of credit. We've always been there for each other as a support system. When she's feeling down and unwell, I usually end up picking up the slack, so to speak. And then when I'm really bad, she'll pick up the slack, and she's always there to sort of, try to push me up and try to encourage me to get up out of bed and let's watch a movie together, or let's whatever, let's go for a drive or something, just to try and not sort of wallow in the darkness, um,
Mm.
but also not sort of dismissing how I'm feeling, like uh, it's not the same. Oh, don't be sad. Like
Hmm.
you're feeling really crappy,
Yeah,
and you have a right to feel crappy.
absolutely.
And so not dismissing what you're feeling.
Okay. And so in those times when you come out of the depression, do you use those feelings as the inspiration going forward? I know you do a lot of out of anxiety, but I mean, are a lot of your artwork from the depression after, or is it
Some of
mainly
it
the
is.
anxiety?
Probably mostly the anxiety, but I have done pieces I think that reference those dark times, and usually when I come out of a dark period,
Mhm.
which usually involves some sort of artist block where I'm not creating anything, I'll come out and I'll just be creating at a feverish pace, like art pieces are just
Mm.
flying
Yep,
out the window, kind of thing.
yep,
That
that's how it
So yeah,
works.
yeah, you almost become manic. I had a little bit of an art block, a few months back, and when I came out of it, I went right into this inked photography series, and I posted about it actually on Facebook, sort of putting it out there that if other artists kind of have this sort of manic anxiety when they're creating something that they're really excited about, like I was kind of, yeah, I was like almost like shaking. I was just so creatively charged, you
oh,
know.
I've
It's
definitely been
amazing.
there. And again, I'm not like an artist in that I draw, I'm a writer. And so when I am in that anxious anxiety mode, I'm writing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of my friends can attest to that, because then I'm like, okay, you need to read this. Oh my God, I'm going to start this new novel. Oh my God, I'm going to do this. I wrote this poem. I wrote this essay. Like it's a lot of stuff.
And you're
Unfortunately
almost,
for me, no, I'm just
go
gonna say,
ahead.
unfortunately for me, I'm not really displaying any of that or publishing any of that. But it's a lot. Like I have
wow, you
tons
should
of
share
written
some of it.
work.
You should share some of
I
it.
have tons of
Well,
written work that is the result of me being in that anxious, um, manic state, coming
yeah.
out of a low point.
And it's funny, like you almost, um, like when you're in that sort of manic creative state, like you're almost not the same person, and you kind of like when you come out of it, you kind of look back like you're almost like inebriated or something. It's like,
Yes.
what did I do last night, kind of thing,
Not sure.
like yeah. And
So
sometimes there's some good stuff in there, and sometimes you're just like, whoa, what the hell was I thinking there?
there's a couple of interesting questions online. By the way, Vaughn Perry said that Lizzie's cat is already the Damien cat. So
I already responded to that. You better leave Remy alone. My cat is bad, but he's my king. So, yeah.
Yeah, we only have a couple of minutes. So Marjorie Lorraine says, historically, the artists and writers have always enlightened us during our darkest pandemic moment. Jose says, I find with depression, you usually need to ride it out. Be patient, understanding. There's no quick fixes. Mel Blaine says, you're never really out of the depression. It's something you have to work on every day. So
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I always say that that my mental health is a work in progress. You know, it's a piece of artwork that's never going to be finished, and I just always add something to it, and you know, and it's just something you have to sort of roll with.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Mark, as we're getting closer to that end point, I would like to ask how we, our viewers, can purchase your materials. And what are your aspirations as far as Mindmelt Studios? What would be your ultimate?
My ultimate, I think, I mean, my goal has always been to sort of be a self-supporting artist. You know, I don't want to become rich and famous, although, I mean, obviously that would be nice. But I would like to, yeah, I would like to at least be able to pay my rent, pay my bills, and just live an okay life, you know? That's my ultimate goal, just to make a career out of it and just people enjoy my artwork. You know, it always it doesn't matter how many pieces I sell. Every time I sell a piece, there's it gives me a charge. You know, I get excited because somebody decided that, yeah, you know what, I need that in my home. You know, I need to own that and look at that every day in my house, and it's an amazing feeling. You know, I'm honored to have people like my work. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm just happy to get my artwork out in the world, and I know, you know, there's a lot of artists out there that are afraid to sort of put their work out there, and it's definitely a big step to put yourself out there, because every piece of art is kind of a piece of yourself, you know, that you're putting out there, and when somebody wants to buy it, it's like they're accepting a piece of you.
So how can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook. Just look up Mindmelt Studio.
Okay.
You can find me on Instagram as well at mindmelt_studio. And I also have a website called www.mindmeltstudio.com. And I have a web shop on there, so you can buy all sorts of different stuff. I have prints and originals and stickers and buttons and all sorts of goodies.
Can't wait to buy some stuff. Well,
I definitely want to buy the image that we used for our ad today. Like that was
I
just
like that one. Yeah, check out the Facebook page for that, guys. You have to
Yeah.
scroll down a little bit.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah,
see it.
and yeah, if anybody you know, has any questions about my work or about purchasing anything, feel free to message me. I'm always happy to interact with people.
All right, Mark, any last words?
This has been awesome. I'm you know, really pleased to be here, and thank you for the invite. Thank you to Rob for reaching out to me. You know, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Well, thank
joining
you
us. We
for
do
all of your
appreciate
witty
it.
commentary. Thank you for all of your witty commentary on the Facebook page.
Yeah, you're a funny dude. No question about that.
It's always fun to interact.
All
And
right, Mark.
another fantastic thing about Mark is that he is a fellow Bruins fan. You got to give him props.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
got to close out now. We got to close out now. See you later, Mark. All right.
Cut it
Nice
off
meeting
for
you.
that.
Great. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark was awesome. That was
I enjoyed that.
yeah,
And I definitely enjoy his work. I was looking through a lot of his pieces before the show today. Loved it. Loved it.
yeah.
That's me. That's me.
He's pretty amazing.
Awesome.
All right. So we got to jump into our hot topics. We got a lot.
Let me take a shot. Let
Yeah,
me take a shot.
you're going to need a shot for this one. Yep.
Lies, shenanigans.
All right. So let me tell you how the hot topics works. Each of our hosts comes with a topic in the news they want to discuss. They'll tell us about their hot topic, ask a question, and we'll start our timer. Then our host will discuss. Once time is up, we'll see Gingy dancing to our theme song.
Welcome back, girl.
And be showing us, he'll let us know the time is up, and we'll move on to the next topic and the next host. And they'll talk about whatever they want to talk about. And again, make sure you continue sharing your thoughts, feelings, and questions because we're listening and responding. And today we are starting with me because we are going to be talking about that crazy debate last night. So, Truth, Lies, and Shenanigans, it was all of it last night. All of it last night. So, yeah, I'm just going to start out showing you a clip of the show, the debate.
Will you shut up, man? Listen, China ate your lunch, Joe. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make
Joe,
sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that.
You know what?
Absolutely not
stop.
true.
You're on tape doing it.
You're going to
You're on
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen.
Is,
I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice,
he's
but I
on
see it seems
tape.
to be. Why shouldn't I be different than the two of you?
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
That was a good one.
That's ridiculous.
a good
Chris
one.
Wallace. I mean, I know Lizzie, you have some comments on Chris Wallace as a moderator. Go ahead.
Obviously you can't necessarily prepare for this. Like even if you know Trump's demeanor, his characteristics, his penchant for being a bully, I don't think there was any way to prepare for this level of vitriol and bulliness, if you will. Yes, that's a new word. But I just don't think he took charge from the beginning. Like you have to, in the beginning, take charge and be assertive and let them know we ain't doing it like this.
Mhm.
You will shut up when I tell you to shut up.
I think he tried though.
Nah, ain't no trying. It's your job. You're the moderator. Again, like a lot of people in talking about who should be the moderator for the next debate, a lot of people have proposed Samuel L. Jackson. Now, do you think
That would be great.
he have delivered? He would have delivered.
Oh,
That would be great.
I would pay money to watch that.
Chris Wallace, to his credit, he did apologize today. And he put the onus on himself and felt like he failed. And so that's a big step, to publicly come out and critique yourself. But I think they need to go in a different direction, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of liked it. I got to be honest with you. I like that Chris Wallace had to keep cutting him off, and because I think, I mean, I agree that he was a poor moderator in that sense that he had to do that, but it kind of made Trump look unpresidential, like very unpresidential. So
To whom? To us?
well, yeah, I mean, his
Not
base is his
her.
base, though. There's nothing you can do with his base. They're all voting for him regardless. It's
I
those
could do some stuff
independents.
in his
It's
base. I
those.
could do some stuff.
Who
in
you
his base.
convincing in his base? You ain't convincing nobody in his base.
Well,
You
it
haven't
really-
seen my tricks. It's the need.
Okay.
It really wouldn't have mattered who you put in the seat first because, like you said, Liz, there was no way to prepare for this. So now that we've seen the first Gong show, they can prepare for the next one. And Trump did exactly what he wanted to do. He showed up. He was full of vitriol, but he showed up and he steamrolled the moderator. He steamrolled the process. I was on the debate team in high school. This was not a debate. There were no rules followed. There was no decorum whatsoever. So when you have someone that shows up and has a complete disregard for how the proceedings are supposed to go, even if they would have turned his microphone off, this is the type of man who would then start shouting louder and moving towards the live mic.
Yeah.
This
Let
is
him go.
Trump.
Yeah. He did the same thing with Hillary. He did that same thing with Hillary.
Put them in the
Security.
isolation booths.
Security. Von Perry says Samuel L. Jackson would have fit right in that circus last night. Camille Summers says, saw Trump supporters boo hoping that Chris Wallace was too tough on Trump and siding with Biden. I have no clue what debate they were watching. Jacqueline Robbins said, how about using someone from the League of Women Voters the way they did back in the day? It was shameful, and she feels sorry. and the world is laughing at us, which is true. All right, let's go to the next. So they talked about the Supreme Court as well.
I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already.
Thoughts?
So I think people are going to be surprised by my reaction to this. I almost agree with Trump a little bit here because it's not
I'm
his
surprised
fault.
that you agree with me.
It's second time in a week. Oh my God. What's
Right.
going on? But it's not Trump's fault that the system for nominating Supreme Court justices is the way it is. That's the fault of the government. And there needs to be a change
It does need to
because
be a
we
change.
saw this when Obama was still in office.
Yep.
And he was absolutely right. It's a partisan issue. Whomever is in control, whichever party is in control, they are going to pull the strings and they are going to say whether or not, okay, we are going to put forth a nominee or we are not going to vote on a nominee. We're not going to allow the nominee to come forward.
Yeah.
And so I agree with him on that. However, I'm still going to call out them Bama Republicans
That's right.
for being hypocrites.
Mm-hmm.
They're hypocrites. Even, Lindsey Graham, hold me accountable for what okay, yeah, we're going to hold you accountable because
He said it twice. He said it twice.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Bro.
So, yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, one thing he did say was, he said he's elected president for 4 years, not 3 years, which is absolutely true. But I was going to make the same point. The problem is the hypocrisy. So.
Well, because Obama was elected president for 4 years.
Right. And they just ignored it.
265 days before the election, and they still refuse to honor his nomination. They still refuse to honor it.
Any thoughts, Robbie?
I just wanted to circle back to something Liz had said earlier at the beginning of the show when we were talking about why it's important to vote just at the Senate, just at the state level, at every municipal election, because when you put those people in power, they're the people that are going to put other decision makers into power. So that's why you got to get your boots on the pavement, or at least electronically, however you can. Vote.
Yeah, Camille said he may have excited his base, but he didn't get any new voters into his camp with his behavior last night. And Vaughn Perry says, I blame Mitch for his hypocrisy. All right, we talk coronavirus.
Or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault.
And he's just calling off his talking points. I mean, he's had those same talking points in every one of his press conferences. I don't know. I'm just frustrated with him.
China was one of our drink game triggers.
Oh yeah, he said it a lot too.
Yeah. So we had a drink game last night, and so if Biden or Trump said certain words, certain phrases, you had to take a shot. And China for Trump was one of those triggers, one of those shots. And so I can't even. I didn't put a count in to how many times he said China, but he started very early in the conversation, blaming China, asserting everything to China. And what was really sad was during the conversation when Chris Wallace asked about his response to the allegations that he didn't handle the COVID crisis well, Joe Biden spoke first. And then when it went to Trump, in his moment, he decided, okay, instead of talking about the COVID crisis, he took exception to the fact that Biden used the word smart. And so then he started to dog Biden out for
Oh,
not being
smart.
smart,
Yeah.
for where he went, for his, formal education, where he went to college. And that's where I think if I'm Joe Biden, that's when I kind of shift from Mr. Nice, demure, nice guy to like, Bama, you paid people to get into college.
Yep.
Okay.
And avoid the draft.
You are barely
And
literate.
people take his tests.
Your vocabulary is atrocious. It's not even as smart as a fifth grader.
Yeah.
Bigly and Kofifi every
Bigly.
day. And so for you to say, don't you ever, talk about smart, you're not smart. I would have been like, bruh, really? Really? We want to go there because we can go there. We
Right.
can go there.
So we're short on time, so I'm just going to go straight to this one here.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that
Take another
they
shot.
need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm willing
prepared
to do that,
specifically
but
do it?
Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it,
Do
sir.
it.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want
Say
to
it.
call them? What do you
Long
want to call them?
pause.
Give me a name. Give me
Long
a
White
name.
pause.
Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
right
you like
Give me a name.
white supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a left-wing
Go ahead,
problem.
let's-
Condemn.
white
Proud Boys.
supremacists-
Hold on, I'm going back.
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what.
All right. For those people that don't know who the Proud Boys are, it's a extreme right-wing organization, and yeah, they are happy to hear that. You said, Lizzie, that they put it on their logo or something.
Yep. They've
I
added
would
it to their
say-
logo.
I would say maybe 30 minutes, an hour after the debates, they put it on their logo. They were hyping this up. They were happy because from their perspective, Trump is an advocate. He's on their side.
He is on their side. There's no
Yeah.
question.
He never denounced them. He never called them a white supremacist.
He never will.
He never called them white supremacists. He never said anything that they were doing was bad. And so they were like, hey, boop, boop, boop. Whoop,
There
whoop.
was nothing confusing about that question. Do you denounce this? And in this day and age, that anyone would still want to hitch their wagon to those ideals is beyond me, but it does appeal to his voter base. And I promise you that when he was being drilled, that there was a segment of the American populace that was sitting there going, don't say it, don't say it, oh, don't say it.
Oh yeah.
Woo!
Yep. That's exactly what happened.
That's
Also,
disgusting. That just blows my
can't
mind
call-
that it's still happening.
You can't call Joe Biden a dummy 2 minutes prior and then come back and say that I didn't understand your question when you asked me to denounce these white
Give me-
supremacists.
Give
Like-
me a name.
like-
No, denounce.
Yeah.
Denounce this.
So I was online. I was online, and somebody said something about like Trump's not a racist, and I don't even know why I keep these friends that are ridiculous. So,
Friends?
well, these friends on my page, but I responded to it, and I was like, okay, there's no question Trump is a racist, but at heart, he's a narcissist, and it's always about us versus them, or me versus them versus everybody else, which makes him a racist because he's always us against them, and it's always about socioeconomics with him. So who has money, who's going to do something for him, who can he use to get what he wants. Like, he hates migrants coming in unless they build his buildings for cheap. He hates blacks unless he can ride their notoriety somehow. He hates Jews unless they're giving him money or something. So he'll praise you, hang out with you, and treat you real good until he's used you up or you caught on to his game. That's how he works.
Again, and maybe, a lot of our viewers aren't aware of this, but his history of racism goes back to the 70s and the early 80s.
Way back.
He was sued by the United States Justice Department and lost because he and his father in their real estate business refused to rent or sell to Black potential owners and renters. Refused. And so he lost that lawsuit, had to pay a fine, had to give an apology, but then subsequent to that, the whole issue with the Central Park Five, where he, basically called them out for something that they were later exonerated of. And even when they were exonerated, he still took out an ad saying that in his eyes, they were still guilty. The xenophobia, the racism, all of it is there. It's just his supporters, one, they agree with him, but also they don't want to see it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to acknowledge it. So this is where we are with this particular president. So every time someone is like, well, show me examples of his racism, I'm like, show me examples of when he's not being racist. Because when he says that, he is for this particular group, that particular group, it's because he's getting something out of it. And the first thing he will say about that is, I've done more for the Black people than anybody else. I've done more for the Asians than anybody. I've done more for the Canadians than anybody else. Like that's how he presents it.
Mm-hmm. So
it's not for the interest of the other people, it's for him.
We're gonna have to close this out, but I want to respond to Mike Winter. He says, Neo, he has never treated Blacks nicely. So I agree with you, but what I was responding to at the time was they were showing pictures of him with Jesse Jackson, pictures of him standing by Rosa Parks, Muhammad Ali, and of course, he did hire a Black apprentice, but I just want to point out the only reason he hired the Black apprentice because he whooped the other apprentice, and he had no choice.
He also had a Black girlfriend, former model Cara Young. He had a Black girlfriend, but that's
he's
why
treated some Black people nicely. But again, that was to use them for something or another.
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson was in bed, raping Sally Hemings. Like it doesn't that is not an issue.
Yeah.
Like you can be for Black people or nice to Black people when it benefits you.
Yeah.
Still doesn't mean that you're not a racist.
All right, Marjorie says Trump only likes Trump. Mike says David Duke was clear about saying Trump will take us back to the days of greatness. We had Jacqueline Robinson said they're further acknowledge them. Marjorie also says I'm embarrassed, so embarrassed by Trump. All right, we've got to move quickly. So Lizzie, Truth, Lies, Shenanigans.
This is truth, unfortunately. So we're back to Breonna Taylor. We are talking about last week it was determined that only one of the cops that was involved in her murder was going to stand trial. Had charges brought against him, but it wasn't for the direct infraction, direct murder, killing of Breonna Taylor. It was for some other nonsense, shooting into the apartments of other people.
Mm-hmm.
But this is particularly about the Kentucky Attorney General and how he hasn't been honest. He hasn't been forthcoming. So he, immediately when people were talking about Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, the whole premise was the reason why the police officers shot into the apartment was because Breonna Taylor's boyfriend shot first and hit an officer, and that officer was killed. Or I'm sorry, that officer was wounded. And so the Attorney General came out and said, we have eliminated all allegations of friendly fire here. Well, then the ballistics reports came out and said, no, that's not true. As it stands now, it's looking more like one of your officers shot the police officer first, and that caused the chain reaction. But that's not how the AG presented it. Then subsequent to that, He wasn't honest in the grand jury testimony. He didn't present all of the evidence to the grand jury. He didn't give the grand jury the option even to bring charges against the other officers. And so one of the members of the grand jury called him out, wanted to have an investigation. He agreed to an investigation. A judge ordered an investigation and that the tapes be released of the grand jury testimony.
Mm-hmm.
And he agreed to that. But now he has pulled back and is asking for a delay. So my question to the panel is, do you trust the Kentucky Attorney General?
If you remember,
Rob?
let me jump
I'm
in.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
If you remember the last time we brought up, I think it was last week, actually, I think it was Wednesday's show last week that we talked about this. And I told you that I was listening to him. I didn't know anything about the Kentucky AG prior to that, but I was just listening to him give a press conference. And I said, there is just something shady. I even said it on the show, there's something shady about this guy. And then later you find out he's like hanging out with who's somebody's niece, Mitch
And he's Mitch
McConnell's.
McConnell's boy.
Yeah,
He's a Trump supporter.
right.
And he thought that he was going to be one of the nominees that Trump put forth for the Supreme Court.
Yeah, yeah. So
That's what he
he's
thought.
yeah. On top of that, there was a report that the officer, one of the officers, was on site after the shooting. That they have
Yes.
videotape of him actually being on scene when they're doing the investigation. So, and they didn't present that as well. So, I mean, there is shadiness all around, and they're hiding a lot. And there's no question that he is shady. No question in my mind. And like I said, even without knowing all this information, just listening to him talk, I knew he was shady.
Rob?
Yeah, well, there's something definitely to be suspicious of because that's it. The allegations of him just bringing forward the wanton endangerment charges and not bringing the more egregious charges forward. And I really applaud this grand juror for coming out and wanting to speak publicly so that the truth comes out, because this isn't something that happens very regularly. It's very rare. I know one of the last instances of this occurring was in 2014, the shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, where one of the grand jurors came forth and needed to speak their truth. They needed to get it out there. So I'm hoping with the ongoing FBI investigation that we will get a fair and equitable decision from the courts, because I really think that this process has been obstructed, and right at the Attorney General level.
No question.
I have a friend on Facebook who was saying that most of us who were questioning or skeptical of Daniel Cameron we were cynical, and we were just looking for some type of conspiracy theory because he's from Louisville. He's a Black man from Louisville. He has paid his dues to get to where he is, and I don't deny that. However, as Black people, we know all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Like when I saw that, and I'm not even saying that all Black Republicans are bad. Like I question them, but I don't think that they're bad people. But when I saw that he was, good old boys with Mitch McConnell, and that he was a Trump supporter, and that he was expecting that he was going to be considered for the Supreme Court nomination, it's like it all makes sense. He can't, ruffle feathers when he's expecting all of this from the party. And so no, I don't trust him. Not one bit, especially since now it's come forward that he wasn't honest. He wasn't transparent. He wasn't forthcoming with all of the information. And I would say this about him as a Black man. I would say this as, to a white AG, to an Asian AG, whatever. Like he played politics instead of trying to figure out what happened to Breonna Taylor.
Yeah. For me, I mean, it doesn't even matter what race he is. I knew he was shady from the beginning. I mean, I knew he was shady. I mean, I could just see it. So we have some comments online. We've gone from All Lives Matter to Wall Lives Matter on Perry. Jacqueline Robinson said he's married to Mitch's niece. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yep. Kevin Thaxton says the Kentucky AG makes Clarence Thomas look like Malcolm X. Love that.
No, we will not go there. He ain't that bad.
He's
He
not as
ain't
bad as
that
Clarence Thomas. Is that what you're
He
saying?
ain't that bad. Clarence Thomas is woo.
Clarence Thomas is pretty bad. Yeah, you're right. I don't know if he's far off though. I don't know if he's far off. Yeah, and then Jacqueline Rom says, I knew he was shady when he was interviewed by Gayle King. He was contemptuous and seemed downright offended that she dared to question him. Did you see that? I didn't see that.
I did not see that. I did not, but it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all. A black woman calling him out? What? Yeah. Yeah.
Jacqueline Robinson says, notice that the stuff he brags about doing for the blacks is always related. Oh, to criminal. I'm sorry, we went backwards to Trump. All right, let's move on. We're out of time.
Come on, Rob.
All right, go ahead, Rob. Truth, lie, or shenanigans?
Well, this is a truth that may skirt the lines of shenanigans. So, right? So there's a teacher in France, Sylvain Hélène. Is a kindergarten teacher, and he's speaking out after he claims that he's lost his job due to his physical appearance, which includes tattoos all over his body and having the whites of his eyes surgically turned black. So this is a 35-year-old man who started getting tattooed when he was 27 after some kind of existential crisis, if you will. He has lost the job working with kindergartners after at least one child came forward and complained to their parents that they were having bad dreams about this teacher. So I guess to me, this is one of these things where I have to question, where do they draw the line? Is this an appropriate punishment? Now, as far as I know, they've removed him from teaching kindergartners, but they haven't removed him from teaching. What they've proposed as an alternative, I don't know. I know that there's been some kind of arrangement. But let's start with the educator in the room, shall we?
So, from what I understand, he has been allowed to teach 6-year-olds and up, which I guess for all intents and purposes, we are assuming that they're a bit more mature than 6 and under. The kid in question whose mother made the complaint about him was 3 and was saying that her son was having nightmares or what have you. Listen, I am all about people and their freedom and their right to live in their truth and represent who they are. But you, in doing that, also have to recognize the consequences of that.
Mm-hmm.
And as an educator, I'm expected to look a certain way when I come into the classroom. Is it fair? Maybe not, but those are the rules.
Nope.
Now, I'm not talking about how, the old rules in American society would say that my hair is a mess and that I need to straighten it or whatever. But I'm just talking about basic, I'm walking in, I have a t-shirt on, or a blazer on or whatever. Even if he had a blazer on, pants on, whatever, his entire face is tattooed. His head is tattooed.
Oh, yes.
His tongue is tattooed. His eyes, purposely, like he wasn't born with this condition. His eyes have been, the whites of his eyes have been dyed black. You have to understand, for little children, that could be jarring.
Yep.
That is distracting. That is not allowing you to teach and be effective in what you are hired to do. I remember being in, I think, 5th grade when Michael Jackson's Thriller video came out. And so in our school, we had TVs everywhere. So they decided they were going to show Thriller to everybody. And I'm in 5th grade. Again, I like Thriller. I like killer stuff. I like killer shows. I like Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger. So I wasn't scared. However, our school went from preschool to 8th grade. Those little kids, they had fits. They were crying. And this is Michael Jackson's Thriller, which isn't that scary.
I don't know. It was
They
kind
were
of scary.
they were done for
It
the
was.
rest of the day. They could not participate in class. They had nightmares.
Yeah.
So this is not about you, teacher. This is about your students.
Yeah.
Like, and if I'm a parent, I'm gonna be like, dude, what the F?
Yeah.
Like, what do you what? What?
I mean,
No, no.
I'm basically in agreement with with Lizzie on this one. I mean, I believe people should have rights to do stuff like what he's done. I mean, he should be able to do whatever he wants to do, but there is still a line that you have to draw with children. I mean, you have to be reasonable around children. Because if he were teaching 8th or 9th grade, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, the kids, they fine. But when we're dealing with little kids, we still have to be reasonable, understanding people, about the nature of children. And so if we understand that this may be frightening to children, we just don't do it. And I would support, moving him on from somewhere else. I mean, maybe like say higher grades, like Lizzie mentioned, but definitely higher grades. But I don't think he should be fired outright. And it shouldn't be because he chooses to do this. I mean, if someone chooses to do these things, I mean, anyway. But I think consideration for the children.
I support people's autonomy to make these choices. Let your freak flag fly. Absolutely. But there comes a point when your decisions have financial consequences if you continue down a certain path. If you want to be considered a professional in education amongst children and you create a monstrous appearance, it's beautiful artwork, but at the end of the day, it's an oddity. It is visually jarring. It is not part of the norm. And you know what? Question the norm. I don't want to be part of the norm. That's awesome. But there comes a point where I can't take him seriously as a professional. As an educator, this is maybe not somebody's influence that I would want on my child. Much like if I were to walk into an investment firm and this is the agent that they would assign me, I would probably ask if there was anyone else that I could wait for, that I'd be willing to wait another hour before I invest my money there. It really, that's it. It's that line of professional. Dress for the job that you want, not the job you have. Well, head to toe tattoo. If you want to be a model, if you want to be an artist, if you want to be an entertainer, awesome. Not an educator.
One last point.
Right?
He also isn't taking into consideration that he doesn't have to deal with the consequences of these kids reacting to or being affected by his appearance once they leave the classroom. He thinks, okay, they should be able to adjust, but then they have to go home to their parents. And their parents are the ones that have to deal with the nightmares, the crying, the whining, because they have like this ghoulish looking teacher that they don't want to go back to in the morning. That's not on him. That's on the parents.
All right, some quick comments online before we close it out. Marjorie Simpson says, can we really compare Lizzie's natural awesome mane with eyeball tattoos? Vaughn Perry says he's a distraction to his students. And Saima was like, whoa. Agree with Liz. My 9-year-old freaked out watching Thriller. And Jose said, we could never compare his eyeballs to Lizzie's mane. All right, that's it for Hot Topics. Good job, guys.
Lies, shenanigans.
All right, let's get into our game show. Let's make it quick.
Oh, shit. Rob, did you know we were playing a game?
I have no idea what we're playing.
You're playing a game. Today's game is Ask. We're just going to ask some rapid fire questions to all of us, and we'll each answer a different question, and we're going to let our viewers decide the most interesting answers. So you viewers out there, you're going to be voting on who gave the most interesting answers, and you'll be the winner, and the winner of the game will get our last word for the day. So, for
The
example,
winner of the game will get a new Chanel purse.
ha, so no points, just votes from the audience today. All right. So we're gonna start out with Rob B. Ready?
Ooh, yeah.
What you got, Rob?
Who
What you
and
got?
where was your first kiss?
Oh,
First what?
that was
Kiss.
my first kiss. So that was in grade 1, and that was at the back of the classroom by the vestibule. And
Vestibule.
yes. So it was just at the back of the room, right? Everybody hung up their coats and jackets, and while there was some disarray, I saw an opportunity to sneak a kiss to my first little girlfriend.
Oh.
It was around my friends who went,
I bet they did. I remember mine too. Lizzie, what is the best plan for Friday night?
Oh, Lord. So I'm not going to win any votes on this. For me, best plan on Friday night is some cocktails, namely something with vodka and
some votes for that.
Some Mexican food, some authentic Mexican food, and then kicking it up with, again, Discovery ID killer shows. 100%. If I'm not watching killer shows, then it has to be a sporting event. But sports during COVID has been different, so I'm just gonna, defer to killer shows.
All right. Remember, rapid fire. All right. All right. For me, aliens arrived on Earth and asked you to describe our species. What will you tell them? I would tell them don't look at Trump because they would be looking at another alien. But aliens, I would tell them that we are awesome. I don't know. That's a terrible answer. All right, Robbie. The police is asking, where was your best buddy last night? What will you tell them?
Oh, we were just hanging out in the backyard cutting some wood.
Okay. Oh, so you actually were doing that. You tell them the truth. Okay. Lizzie, what do you keep on your bedside table?
I don't have a bedside table.
Okay, so nothing. All right. For me, what do you hate most in this world? Oh, this is easy. Today, that's Trump.
That should have been me.
Sure, that's an easy one. Today, I really, truly, and I don't really hate much or many people or things, but I do really, for some reason, I really have this amazing disdain for this dude. All right.
That should have been my question.
All right. Do you believe in UFOs, Rob? This last round.
I have definitely been smacked by unidentified flying objects.
All right. All right. Lizzie, how many people can get drunk by emptying your alcohol stash? This is a great question for you.
I would say our graduating class, which was like 450, 460.
The whole class. So that's how much alcohol you have. All right.
And I'm low. I'm running low. So yeah.
Oh, this is an easy one for me. So if you were a superhero, what would your power be? I always want to fly. It's always my superpower. Always gotta fly. So all right.
Supersonic.
So, all right, guys, that's our game show for tonight. But you gotta pick our winner. So tell us who had the most interesting or exciting answers to the question, and then the winner will get the last word at the end. All right. All right. Right into our shout out. Lizzie, shout outs.
Shout out to everyone who tuned into our live stream last night and who were actually taking shots, making comments, fact checking. It actually was fun, even though the debate was a little crazy. It was a fun live stream. So make sure you tune in to us next week for the vice presidential debate live stream.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
It was a really fun show. I mean, we had a lot of fun things going on, good conversation. So make sure you join in that live stream the next time. Rob B, any shout outs?
You know what? Piggybacking on our guest, shout out to everyone who is struggling through this social isolation. There are absolutely resources out there. There are ways to deal with it. Reach out to a friend if you know someone that you haven't heard from in a while. reach out to them. They might just need to hear a friendly voice. Might change somebody's day.
100%.
Yep. And my shout out is to Mark as well. But I want to shout out to people online. We had a lot today. Paulette, Jose, Vaughn. We had Jacqueline. Mike Wolf was on.
Hey, Mike.
We had Saima. Always great to see Marge Simpson.
Dr. Martin. Thank you, man.
And we have Mike Winter. So, Thaxton showed up tonight. Camille, thank you for commenting. It was a lot going on tonight, so we do appreciate you guys. Great stuff. All right, so that's our show for tonight. Make sure your vote on the comments page. I don't see any votes yet. Who won? All right. Oh, it looks like Rob B's in the lead right now. Rob B for president.
Damn Canadians. Damn Canadians.
We'll see. By the time I finish the closeout, we'll see who won. All right, and that's all the time we have. I'd like to thank you guys for joining us. We hope you maybe learned something or gained a new perspective, or even got something off your chest. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe at TLS Live Show.
Tweet me.
Yes, get on the Twitter page. Make sure you're on the Facebook page. Discuss all this stuff. And make sure you join us Sunday, 4 p.m. for another great show with Lizzie, myself, Jam, and Rob B is back. All right, it looks like Rob B, you definitely won the game. Great answers.
Hey,
Rob B, why don't you give us our last thought for the evening?
take us home, Robbie.
Last thought for the night. Again, 33 days, folks. 33 days. So important. You're running out of time. Get out there. Vote now if you have the option. Let your voice be heard. Do what you got to do.
All right, Rob. Have a great night, guys. Good night, Lizzie. Good night, viewers.
Every election, there's all this whining.
Kids always hollering about the environment.
About jobs.
Healthcare. No one's ever given me free money.
And what are the girls going on about still anyway?
Pay gap, pay gap, pay gap. Come on, honey.
Maybe if you worked harder.
War on straws? What's next?
Life can't always be brunch or drip or TikToks. People don't know what real problems are.
Like, thugs and looters.
And preserving our heritage.
I'm just saying what everyone's thinking.
And I'm voting.
Oh yeah, I'll be voting.
I'll be voting.
You know I'm voting.